We don't have a sponsor for this video, so the sponsor is Anvil, because we're discontinuing a couple of our wallets just because I got a couple really cool designs I'm working on. I need to make a little bit of room so we don't have 50 wallets on the website. So we're getting rid of the Row wallet and the Luton wallet. And in order to liquidate some of the extra inventory, we're gonna do 20% off both of these wallets with the code GOODBYE at checkout. And it's just on these two wallets, and one's a bifold, one's kind of like a vertical wallet, and they're hand stitched by us in the shop. 2 needles, a single thread, sewn them together like old saddle makers used to make their saddles. All vegetable tan leather, tanned by Wicken and Craig. In my opinion, it's the best way and the best leather to use to make a really nice wallet. So check them out via the link in the description and get yourself a Luton or a Row before you can't get them anymore. So thank you guys. The Nike Cortez is one of the most successful and iconic running shoes Nike's ever made that you might not have ever heard of, because it was one of the very first successes Nike ever had before they were even called Nike in the late 60s. So we're gonna cut this thing in half and see how it's made and test the materials to see if it lives up to that running shoe heritage, or if it's gotten the Nike treatment where they take as many of the high quality materials out, replace them with cheap materials, hide as many things on the inside as possible to give you the facade of a classic running shoe without any of the substance. So now let's go over the history of the Cortez. It all started in 1966 when it was designed by Bill Bowerman, the co-founder of Nike, in collaboration with Onitsuka Tiger, basically Asics, as a new running / jogging shoe. It was originally called the worst name ever, the TG24. And at the time, Nike was still called Blue Ribbon Sports, and it was the only distributor of Onitsuka Tiger shoes, and it wasn't even manufacturing shoes on their own. And they had an exclusive contract to be the only distributor in the United States of this product. And then a year later, 1967, Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman talked to Onitsuka, wanting to change the name from the atrocious TG24 to the TG Mexico in honor of the Olympics taking place in Mexico in 1967. Onitsuka wasn't excited about that name, so instead they landed on the name the Aztecs, a callback to the Aztec history, so it was a kind of a nice middle ground. And the problem with that is Adidas was not happy about that name, because Adidas threatened to sue, stating that the Aztec was too close to their track shoe, the Azteca Gold, which to be fair is pretty close if we're being honest. So they had to go back to the drawing board, and in Phil Knight's memoir, Shoe Dog, he quoted Bill Bowerman as saying, "Who was that guy that kicked the shit out of the Aztec?" Phil replied, "Cortez," and thus the name Cortez was born. And it became a little bit of a cultural icon because it was seen on the feet of Farrah Fawcett and Charlie's Angels, Elton John, George Costanza, and even Forrest Gump wore a pair of these. So a pretty unique and cool story of the evolution of Nike and how they got to the naming this shoe, and even a little insight into early years of Nike. So now start going through the details of the shoe, starting with the leather first. So we took the lighter to all the different panels, starting with the swoosh first. Tried the swoosh, clearly fake leather. The little red patch on the back, that's also fake leather. The external heel counter cover on the back, fake leather again. And then the one piece that you're like, oh, this has got to be real leather, because it's the little toe bumper. You're going to be bumping your toe into stuff, and you want that to be leather for the durability and abrasion resistance. That's fake leather too. And then above that, this little lace keeper layer here, fake leather as well. So the only real piece of leather on this shoe is this one single panel on either side. All the rest is really just fake, terrible leather that as soon as you get a scratch in it and nick it, all that foam underneath is just gonna start falling apart. It's gonna just age really terribly. But what is the quality of leather that is in this shoe? Well, we cut a little slit in it and took the macro lens to see the cross section. And as you can see, it doesn't have any of that structural grain pattern at the top that binds all those loose fibers together to give leather its strength. That has been completely removed, making this leather just loose fibers connected together with a really heavy plastic coating on top. And it has a fake print embossed into it. It's only 1.2 millimeters thick. And it's just the absolute worst leather that I've ever seen in a Nike. This is in that D grade range because it's super thin, it has a fake leather print, it has a fake plastic coating on top, no grain pattern, and it's just a really cheap leather through and through. So the absolute worst Nike leather I've ever seen. And then if we look at the rest of the shoe, you know, there's like a really cheap lining on the inside that you can literally just pull chunks of the fuzz off. Typical insole, Strobel stitched, lasting board's all the same, but one thing that is interesting is the midsole is an actual true dual density outsole. For once, and on a really terrible shoe from like 50 years ago, this is one of the only shoes that promotes a dual density midsole that actually has it. Even like the Lululemons we cut apart the other day, advertised hugely. We scanned a million women's feet, dual density midsole. That was not true. But this one is, because if you look at the durometer test, you can see pretty clearly that the top layer is a 35-ish short A, and that blue layer is a little bit softer, around a 30 short A. So finally, dual density. And then the outsole, it actually looks like it's a nice thick rubber outsole. And we'll see when we get it cut in half, but for the most part, the midsole down looks like a pretty decent shoe. It's just the upper that's a complete disaster. So now let's cut this thing in half and really see what's going on the inside to see if Nike's hiding any little tricks on the inside of the shoe. All right, we got it cut in half, so let's see what's inside. So unfortunately, that thick rubber outsole that I thought was really cool, because finally they have a thick outsole on a pair of Nikes, is not as thick as I thought. It still is not super thin by any means, but I just really like the idea of having like a 6mm thick rubber outsole on a running shoe with all the dual density on the inside. But you can see there's cavities in there. There's two reasons for this. It reduces weight and it makes it cheaper to produce. But at least you can see that there is those two layers of foam that are two different densities running all the way through the inside of the shoe, which is unique because a lot of times with these dual density outsoles, it's just different colors on the outside, and on the inside there's really no difference at all. And then other than that, it's a pretty basic shoe. So overall, for 80 bucks, it's still a lot of money for mostly fake leather and cheap foam and a pretty thin outsole. And to really let's just see if I can rip this thing apart, because it's just a cheap cemented construction. And let's see how cheap the construction actually is. Nope. Okay, at least it's cemented well. I got it to like kind of come apart. I'm sure if I really worked on it, it could come off, but I wouldn't spend more than 50 bucks on the shoe, especially for the fact that the leather that it does have is the absolute worst Nike leather we've ever seen. So let me know what you guys think and what your experience has been in these, if you own a pair of these. And if there's anything you disagree with, let me know below. And thank you guys so much for supporting this. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, because that subscriber number is the only thing that sponsors care about. And the sponsors are what allows us to buy all these boots and shoes and cut them in half and show you what you're spending your hard-earned money on. So thank you guys. See ya.